In this early stage, I know you have this great idea of the project intake, so you can understand things like the problem, but also the people involved and the expected outcome. So, yeah, tell
Mm.
us more about this idea of the project intake.
Sure, sure. So it covers a load of different, I say a load of, about three or four different parts in the process there. So obviously there's a whole section about defining your problem, and with the family tree. Then we also talk about stakeholders in terms of um, who are they, and then we start to map them out around where would they sit on a very basic grid, as in are they interested but not available, and then all sorts of different versions of that. And it's meant to be a very very quick exercise where it, I've seen it 1,000 times where people have gone, these four or five people are your stakeholders because they all have a vested interest. And vested interest seems to be the phrase that seems to be bandied around a lot. Stakeholder number three could have a vested interest and could genuinely be your most important stakeholder, but they are so in the weeds with something else that the thing you're working on, I mean, they might give you 10 minutes over the whole year because they're just busy, not because they're a bad person. But then you could have someone else that's stakeholder number two, for example, might want to give you all of the hours every day, be really, really involved because they're really, really like engaged and want to be engaged, but they have no clue. They have no sway in the project either. So if anything, they're just sucking your time. It's a bit of a time sink. So it's trying to figure out who would you work with and how would you work with each of them in terms of your stakeholders. What are they actually going to do for you? And ultimately, what are you going to do for them? And then collectively, sounds a bit cheesy, but what will you collectively do for your users? Because that's what you're creating something for. It's not for you, it's not for them, it's for the end users. Um, and then we start to talk about a bit more around that, around framing the problem for the users. So you've got your business version, you've got your end user version, and how would you bring all of that together so you can then start to plan out what you're going to do, as in looking at your data capture, what data is relevant to get, what is not really relevant to get, where's the best use of your time spent. Do you have a rough window of time of when the people you need to work with are available? And also, do you know who those people are? So it's then starting to figure out, and we've got this on the, I'll show you the process. On the top right of every screen, there is a series of categories of people, and some of them are grayed out because some of them aren't needed for every single step, and some of them are. So it's about making sure you're bringing the right people into your working group or your team when you need them. So you're not bringing someone that's really, really useful right at the end when they could have been really useful at the start and saved you, weeks of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea. It's such a simple one, but like you said, this idea of scoring how influential they are, how interested they are,
Mm.
what's their role in relation to it. Because, like you say, different people can only give us a finite amount of time. So if this person only has 15 minutes to dedicate to this, but they are really important in the process, like use that 15 minutes as much as possible. Or
Yeah.
you don't want other people to think you're wasting their time. So make sure you bring them at the point they can actually add value, and therefore you're not just identifying your stakeholders. I like the nuance there because vested interest is vague and we want to deal in, I guess, in clear terms. So, how interested are they? To what extent? How should they be involved? And I think knowing that at the start of a project is where a lot of people in any project miss a real step because they just go, well, these are all the people we need to have involved. You end up with all these calls where everyone sits on it and says nothing, and five calls later is actually the one where you want them to be participating, but they're thinking, oh, well, all the other five calls in this process, I had nothing to say, so I'm not going to prepare.
Yeah,
I'm not going to turn up engaged. So that's a real
absolutely.
clear step. Yeah.
And we've got and I think I showed it to you as well. We have a product canvas that we have at the start of the process that is, it's at the start because we want to show it to people up top, but it's something that we encourage people to use as often as possible throughout the process of creating something. So right when they're at the start of, is this even a problem, all the way through to we've got something ready to go. Because that is where, as you say, if someone's only got 15 minutes, or if you're sitting on calls thinking, why am I even here? This is the best time to go. This is a summary of where we are right now. And this is the story we've got to so far, or this is the part of the story we've got to so far. And that will change over time. Your stakeholder that might not be particularly useful for you on project A could be the best person to use on project B. So it's making sure that you're being respectful of their time and also your own, and ultimately you're doing this for the benefit of the product you're creating. the product or service or the experience, whatever it's going to be, it needs to be something that is always tied back to, will it solve the problem? Will it support the business? Will it support the end users? If it doesn't do one of those things, you're probably doing something not quite right. But it can always be tweaked. But it's having that level of self-awareness to go, where do I down tools? Where do I pivot?